Well, the floodgates are truly open. Just days after Tesla said it had purchased about 1.5 billion in Bitcoin and will soon accept it as a transaction currency, Mastercard and Visa have said they will allow merchants to accept Bitcoin as a payment method via their credit cards. The world is changing, but fast. Plus, new leaks reveal that the $25,000 Tesla might not arrive in 2023 after all, but 2022, with a reveal and road testing slated for later this year. Exciting news all around. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-it-all. So let's start with the $25,000 car. So first of all, what are the specs that we know about? Well, first of all, it appears that it's going to be a small hatchback, which is not surprising at all. I'm actually kind of sad they're not using my design, which I thought was brilliant. You can check that out up here, but oh well. Anyway, it looks like it's going to be a compact hatchback style that's very popular in Europe and the Far East, etc. Not quite as popular in the United States, but I think there's certainly a big market in this country as well. Supposedly it's going to be built off of the Model 3 base, but I'm a little unsure how exactly that's going to work because if you look at the Model Y, it's actually a little bit difficult to tell between a Model Y and a Model 3 if you're not looking at both of them together. They're very, very similar in size, but they need to shrink this thing down in order to save some money. So maybe it'll be like a the Model 3 platform, but shrunk a little bit and then with a much harder hatchback on the end. Also, the other cars that Tesla makes have extremely rounded backs as a way of reducing the coefficient of drag, and a hatchback is going to have a more blunt end on the back. So anyway, I don't know how they're going to deal with all that, but it'll be really interesting to see what the design looks like when they come out with it. Also, as you might expect for an inexpensive car, it's going to have a single motor. It will have slower acceleration than the other cars, and it should have a range of around 219, I think, to 250 miles is what people are talking about right now. I expect that the single motor will be in the back because historically that's the way it has been for Tesla models. Plus, it's also better if anybody wants to attach a hitch. And I know everybody in Europe loves their hitches, so I would imagine that they would want to make a car that would work well with a hitch, even if it was a third-party hitch. Plus, of course, a rear-wheel drive car is much simpler than a front-wheel drive car because the back wheels do the driving and the front wheels do the steering, and you don't have to have a complex system where you do a drive and a steering together. So that makes sense. I would assume that this new car will use the less expensive lithium iron phosphate batteries that are being made in China right now. It's cheaper to make, it's less resource intensive, it doesn't have quite the energy density, but this is a smaller car without as much range, so it doesn't really matter that much. I would expect something between a 40 and 50 kilowatt hour battery size, although that will be really interesting to find out what they actually announce for that as well. Since the car is lighter weight and smaller, it may be able to get away with a pretty small battery size in terms of kilowatt hours and still get that over 200-mile range. As for the price, as you might expect, it was about 169,000 yuan or about $25,000 US. Where will it be made? Well, of course it'll be made in China. That's the whole point. They're going to design it and make it in China, and then they're going to do global distribution. What's not clear is if other places will eventually make this car as well. It seems a little unlikely that only China would ever make this car unless they build a whole dedicated factory to that. And even then, you've got a lot of global transport if you only manufacture that car in one geography in the world. And of course, as a less expensive car, the demand for this thing is going to be insane. So I would expect at least Berlin to produce this car and possibly other ones. Now, they may have something where they have their own version of the model. Obviously, it would be really silly to have demand way outstrip supply, so it makes sense for other places to make this car. And if you remember, Tesla says this is going to be designed in China for global distribution, not only made in China. So there's a good chance it'll be designed in China, but then they'll build it in other locations as well. Alternatively, of course, Europe could have their own similar version, but slightly different. But it really does sound like Tesla wants to use their China design studio that they're just putting up right now to create these new cars to distribute globally. So maybe that design studio will actually come up with a few different versions and variations on the car, but it sounds like China is going to be taking the lead of this subcompact car. Anyway, if the new Model 2 or whatever they're going to call it is here a year earlier than originally claimed, that is great news. And man, is it going to put the hurt on other car companies who are just now getting out their $70,000+ EVs. Anyway, in my mind, this is all really great news. The sooner a mainstream priced EV gets to market, the better. In a moment, let's talk Tesla and Bitcoin. But first, if you enjoyed the video, please do like it so other people can find it, and definitely subscribe if you want to see more of these. Also, a really big shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You all are wonderful. We actually have 3 new patrons right now. Let me look down here. We have Donald Moe, Talis Paiva, I hope I said that approximately correct, and Ethan Chickering. Welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, if you want to join in on the fun, definitely check out the link in the description. And as well, don't forget that we are Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, if you click on the link and you do some shopping, you can help us out a bunch. Thank you so much. So what is all this news about Tesla, Bitcoin, and now Mastercard and Visa? Last I checked, Bitcoin was up about 10% on all of this news, so that's pretty nice for any of us who actually own Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin for those who are unfamiliar? Well, it's cryptocurrency. And if you want an episode on what cryptocurrency is, definitely ask me. The import of crypto is that it's a currency that's not centralized, so it's not beholden to any one country. Crypto, like Bitcoin or Dogecoin or other cryptocurrencies, is based on math, not gold or oil or nothing, as most currency today is based on really nothing but trust in a given government. Anyway, all of this is a very new type of currency, and there are many that are out there. Dogecoin, anyone? But Bitcoin is one of the oldest, and it's certainly the biggest in terms of mind share, if nothing else. But Bitcoin has always sort of existed in the shadows, sometimes quite literally. It historically has been used by drug dealers, etc., to hide transactions and to launder money and everything. But lately, crypto and Bitcoin in particular has been gaining more and more legitimacy. And Tesla's move just a few days ago was an absolutely huge one. By purchasing about $1.5 billion US in crypto and saying that they're going to allow transactions to eventually happen completely in Bitcoin, it's just huge, huge news. And this could move other players to get in on this as well. ARK Invest, for example, says that if the S&P companies put just 1% of their cash into Bitcoin, one Bitcoin could easily surpass 100,000 US dollars in value. Now, of course, PayPal started accepting Bitcoin last year, and that definitely helped legitimize the currency. But Tesla is a different beast. It's a really, really high-profile company. It's got a ridiculously high-profile CEO in Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is very public about what he likes and dislikes. For Tesla, Bitcoin is partly an investment. In other words, make wealth faster from crypto than putting it in the bank. But partly it's also a means to have cash on hand to be able to do Bitcoin transactions, because of course you have to be able to have that money in order to loan that money or exchange that money or something like that, right? You need that in order to be able to make transactions in Bitcoin. In my opinion, it's the transactional nature of the announcement that really, really matters. This means that one can eventually buy a car without using any governmental money involved, except probably taxes. I don't know how that's going to work out. And that's a really, really big deal. In the United States, certainly, but also in other countries where inflationary pressures might affect the cost of your own currency, and a Bitcoin valuation might be more stable eventually than, or at least it might be inflating in value relative to your currency so that you'll have more buying power with Bitcoin than with your country's currency. Now, there is a group of people who really don't like Bitcoin because it's massively energy intensive, and it definitely is. But you know what? So is mining for gold, etc., and so is manufacturing, and so are other things. And of course, if we can get greener energy sources, that argument is less important. Plus, to an extent, mining Bitcoin can actually use some excess energy at times. And that is a true thing. There are times of day with green energy especially that there's an excess of energy. And so Bitcoin can actually be used to tap some of that energy. But anyway, all of that is a topic for another video, which by the way is coming soon. Anyway, it could certainly be said that Bitcoin is bad for Tesla's mission to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. And I respect that argument, but I don't personally agree with it. So what of Mastercard and Visa? Well, that's even bigger news than Tesla. Mastercard is going to allow direct Bitcoin payments later this year, while Visa is apparently setting up crypto APIs for banks to be able to use. In other words, you want to take crypto if you're a bank, use these APIs for a backend, and it's going to be all set up for you, kind of plug and play. So while Visa will not be as directly involved with purchases, they will be supporting banks' use of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Of course, to manage these transactions in Bitcoin, Mastercard, Visa, and the banks are all going to have massive stores of this money, and that almost at a stroke legitimizes Bitcoin fully. At this point, it seems kind of obvious that other companies and banks, etc., are going to follow suit pretty quickly now, so just watch over the next weeks and months. What's the upshot of all this? Well, as a Bitcoin holder, for one, I'm very happy. The more it's worth, worth, the better it is for me. But I also personally like decentralization as a principle, and this really pushes that forward, so I think that's great too. It feels a little bit weird to be knocking on the US and our monetary system right now, but our currency is pretty bogus and propped up at the moment. I have a feeling that long-term having money in crypto is going to be a better idea than in US dollars, especially as the oil-based economy gets smaller and smaller, which is kind of what props up the US dollar for the most part. Anyway, we will see how this all works out, but as with everything else, more competition is a good thing. So definitely fun times ahead with a new Tesla that more people can afford, plus Bitcoin taking center stage. The next few years are going to be really, really exciting. All right, I hope you enjoyed that episode and found it fun and informative. If you did, definitely make sure you like and subscribe. And in the meantime, please do ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.